Welcome to Wednesday. It's this week's new reset. It's now officially 3 resets away from the release of Dragonflight, and also I sent my camera to a spa to relax and recover for today. What we have to talk about today is a set more of changes to specs and classes. Now, we have just gotten a few days ago another set of balance tuning, some of which were already announced by Blizzard themselves, so we already knew they were going to happen, like for example the massive changes to discipline, the reverts of the nerfs to discipline, further changes to 2 of the rogue specs, some changes to demon hunter, to druid, etc, etc, and today we have a few additions, starting with the few additions that we didn't know if they were true or not. We didn't know if they were going to make it in the game. One is to priest. I know, don't worry, this time priest won't get a wall of text. It's very brief for priest. Number 1, the fear of the possible aura modifier for holy priest when it came to their damage nerf. So the potential aura modifier to their whole kit, which reduced their damage by 14%, has not made it in this next round of hotfixes, so perhaps it has been put on the side for the moment. What has made it into the hotfixes is the very good, the very strong buff to harsh discipline for discipline priest. This was the terrible talent which required you to proc atonement 200 or 100 times before giving you a free penance, which also fired twice as many bolts, 3 more bolts. Now the change is that you only need 10 or 5 casts of smite to trigger this ability. This is amazing for discipline priests. It's amazing because number 1, you can time it yourself. You don't have to have this proc based on how much your atonement heals. You have it on demand. You can cast 4 smites and then know that on the 5th smite you will get the proc of this free penance, so it's very easy to manipulate to, for example, stop at 4 casts of smite, use your penance, send penance on cooldown, immediately cast the 5th smite to immediately reset the cooldown of penance and get the empowered cast. So it's a very improved talent compared to what it was before for discipline, which is a good thing for them. Now, talking about the core aura modifier that for the moment wasn't changed for Holy, it was actually changed for Restoration Shaman, because one of the other possible changes that we saw a couple of days ago was the aura modifier giving Restoration Shaman 20% more damage. And now Blizzard themselves is confirming this change coming with the next hotfix. Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, Lava Burst, Flame Shock and Acid Rain as well all got buffed by 20% in damage. So pretty much every single way Restoration Shaman has to do damage has been buffed by 20%. Now, we also had our video a few days back talking about the damage of healers, and we said that Restoration Shaman was about the 3rd to 4th healer out of 7 when it came to single target damage, and it was the 1st to 2nd healer when it came to AoE damage. So the question is then, why would they buff Shaman by 20%? It looks like it was good already. That was because when it came to AoE damage, it was done on 4 target dummies. And the problem with Restoration Shaman is that their Chain Lightning can only hit 3. Which means that on 4 targets it looks quite good, but as you start adding more and more targets, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 targets, your Chain Lightning will still be hitting 3 targets. Your AoE, when you get into Mythic Plus and you start getting into big pools, is not really going to increase that much the more targets there are. You have plenty of other specs like Evoker with Fire Breath and with Deep Breath. You have Holy Paladin with Consecration, with Shield of the Righteous. You have Restoration Druid with Moonfire and Sunfire Spreading. You have Mistweaver Monk with Feline Stomp, with Bone Dust Brew, with Spinning Crane Kick, and a whole bunch of AoE abilities that can hit multiple enemies, while Restoration Shaman is forced to stop at basically 3. For consistent AoE damage. What is also worse is that Restoration Shaman can't do damage while healing. Restoration Shaman has to completely stop healing if they want to do damage. So if I were to tell you that Resto Shaman was one of the best healers at doing damage because they had 20,000 DPS in AoE, and Holy Paladin had 15,000, that 15,000 of Holy Paladin was done also healing. It was done weaving their damaging abilities with their healing abilities, while that 20,000 damage for Restoration Shaman was done exclusively doing damage, was done with 0 healing. So of course, in a real world scenario, when you go into Mythic Plus and your party is getting battered, the Restoration Shaman will have to stop to heal and therefore lose a lot of damage. So that is perhaps why Restoration Shaman, despite the numbers looking good already, is getting buffed by 20% overall in all of its damage kit. We then have a class we honestly have not seen in a while getting significant changes. To be fair, these are not significant changes either, but at the very least they are some changes. The class being Warlock, starting with Demonology, who gets Imp Gang Boss buffed by over 50% because now the extra damage of an Imp Gang Boss, basically getting promoted from summoning a wild imp and becoming a stronger imp, is not 20% more damage, it's 50% more damage from your Imp Gang Boss. And then there are more widespread changes to Warlock, mostly focused at the general 3 of Warlock. In particular, the HP of Warlock Blizzard took issue with because Soul Leech now gives you a weaker Absorb Shield, it's 6% of your damage dealt instead of 8%. Soul Link now gives you 5% more stamina instead of 10% if the Grimoire of Sacrifice is active. Profane Bargain now increases the stamina by 3 to 5% instead of 5 to 10%, and Demonic Fortitude increases you and your pet's maximum HP by 5% instead of 6%. So basically a sweeping set of changes to the HP, to the health, the tankiness of a Warlock as a whole, because these are not spec specific changes. There are also more non-spec specific changes with the general 3 changes to Inquisitor's Gaze and Summon Soulkeeper. This was the last capstone talent at the bottom of your Warlock general 3. The choice node between Inquisitor's Gaze or Summon Soulkeeper, they are both getting buffed equally by 30%. We then have a couple of changes to Outlaw Rogue. Now, these changes are very small, but I wanted to include them because it feels like for the past couple of weeks we went through talking about the changes to Subtlety and to Assassination to no end. Instead, for once, I actually wanted to include Outlaw in this list of balance tuning because they really have taken a step back. They have taken a spot on the sidewalk to watch Assassination and Subtlety get constantly tuned, and they really didn't get much recently. So first, Sinister Strike gets a buff to its passive to Opportunity. Now the chance to hit an additional time is 35% instead of 30%. And then Audacity, the passive giving your half shots users of pistol shot have a 30% chance to cause your next ambush to be usable without being in stealth. This also gets buffed to 35%. As I said, the changes are quite tiny. As I said, they are not going to rewrite the way you want to build Outlaw, but let's just use this as a reminder that Blizzard actually remembered of Outlaw being a spec in this game. We then finish with Protection Paladin. Protection Paladin is in quite a tough situation given how we have seen recently the state of tanks. They are not, let's just say, they are not in the top half of tanks. Let's just put it that way. So mentioning Protection Paladin during a balance tuning video might give some hope to the Protection Paladin players about some positive changes. So I am going to immediately stop your hopium intake to point out that this is just a bug fix. However, I'm going to give you back a couple of teaspoons of hopium because it's actually a significant bug fix, because this bug kind of made Sentinel a much worse talent to take. Sentinel is the very new and also very strong ability for Prot Paladin, giving you 30% max HP and 30% damage reduction as a cooldown. However, it was hard to use properly because there was a bug which made it not work with Righteous Protector. Righteous Protector is the talent you already had in your old talent setup for Protection Paladin to reduce the cooldown of your wings. Now, Sentinel replaces wings, but the problem is this talent wasn't replacing the cooldown reduction of wings to the cooldown reduction of Sentinel. So it wasn't giving any CDR. Now it's getting bug fixed. Now you're going to get your Sentinel on a 30-ish second cooldown less than before, which, as I said, is not technically speaking a buff to Protection Paladin, but this wasn't working and hadn't been working for a while, so now you can at the very least try out this talent properly for Protection Paladin. This is still not going to make you a better tank than Protection Warrior or Blood Death Knight or Vengeance Demon Hunter or likely even Brewmaster Monk, but it's a step in the right direction. Now, with this set of tuning, we are done for today. It wasn't really that exciting, to be perfectly honest. As I said, we're just 3 weeks away from the release of the expansion. There is still hope. Many players, I'm sure, are still completely hooked on Copium, that out of nowhere there is going to be a gigantic wall of text saving their entire spec from certain doom of the next expansion. Definitely seeing this round of balance tuning, it was quite light, it was quite lightweight compared to what people might have expected of certain changes, but there's still some hope, okay? I'm not completely lost. I have not completely abandoned certain specs. The specs I would have liked to see getting some improvements were Guardian Druid, Protection Paladin, Shadow Priest, Frost Mage, Affliction Warlock, Elemental Shaman, Retribution Paladin. So in my perfect world, there is still some room to get some of these changes to come in, but for now this is what we have to settle with, a not so exciting bunch of changes for a handful of the specs. So for today, on this new reset of Shadowlands, it's time to leave each other. Thanks, of course, as usual, starting by the thanks to my Patreon supporters, which are a big help in supporting me and in contributing to me and this channel, providing you all with some more WoW content. Thank you guys very much. Also, you can support in other ways, which don't include having to abuse your wallet for money, like liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Lastly, for more social interactions and general e-celeb garbage, you can follow me on Twitter, as well as subscribing to my Patreon right at these 2 links. Now, with this out of the way, we are now leaving each other. Thank you guys again for watching. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, what a weird feeling. Waking up at 9 in the morning. I mean, who does that? What year is it?